my name's Michelle Creed and I'm the Head of Integrated Community Services at NHS Merseyside, which is an amalgamation during the transition of what was Liverpool Primary Care Trust, Sefton Primary Care Trust, St Helens, Knowsley and Halton Primary Care Trusts. And at the moment, those primary care trusts are starting to transition towards clinical commissioning groups, and NHS Merseyside is the system leader in terms of trying to transition them into their new form. A typical day for me at the moment in terms of commissioning and system management is involving a fair amount of meetings rather than delivery or commissioning of services, and that is because the services are transitioning to a new form. It's ensuring that the legacy of what is the current organisation and the new organisation, there are no gaps or issues in between. It's also about ensuring that the system is safeguarded and that the risks going from one organisation to a new are managed, I suppose, and mitigated. I think it is a challenging time for nurses at the moment. One of the major challenges, I think, is around the economic climate and the organisational restructure, whether that be from primary care trust to clinical commissioning group or in terms of the provider market itself. The NHS is facing huge challenges in terms of financial management, and for that purpose most organisations are looking at cost improvement plans to ensure that we've got efficient, effective, high quality care. That, I suppose, renders organisations to look at the type of candidate they wish to employ going forward. And for that purpose, I suppose, key skills are required of those candidates. I think self-awareness is important in life, but in nursing it is important. At interview, we'd be looking at things like strengths, weaknesses, values and behaviours. Strengths in terms of what are your strengths? What is it that you feel competent to carry out? And tell us about it, I suppose, because it's the first time we will have met a candidate. And so although you feel as though you're aware of your own strengths, we will not be aware of those. And in terms of weaknesses, they can also be opportunities, the developmental opportunities, but it is about people knowing the limitations and understanding skills and competencies. It is about recognising when they need help and support, and that's fine. I think that's planning around developmental opportunities, maybe mentorship programmes. In terms of values, I suppose that's fundamentally key in why you want to be a nurse. Because you go in and being interviewed by an employer who is looking for somebody who's absolutely committed to nursing, and I think you need to understand your own values for that. Relating to others is quite key, because communication is a massive part of nursing, whether that's with your colleagues, whether that's with the organisation, more importantly with the individuals you're caring for. And that takes quite a lot of emotional intelligence about when and when not to communicate, and when not to intervene in situations. But there is something about understanding your response and reaction, because you will deal with difficult clients. You may deal with clients who do not want at that moment to speak to you, and there is something about how do you deal with that, and you need to know yourself for that purpose. In terms of career planning, I think things around your future direction of travel are sometimes difficult for some people early on, because they don't know where they want their career to be, and some people do know. And if they do know, then I suppose one of their strengths is being focused in terms of their next steps along that journey. If you don't know, that's okay too, because nursing has such a wide scope in terms of provision across the independent sector, the public sector, the private sector. There is commissioning in nursing. There is a whole scope of fields, whether it be specialist or generalist. And I think in terms of planning your career, no step is a wasted step. There's something about learning along that journey. I think as a potential employer, I always look at how people come across an interview. whether it be their confidence, whether that be the way they've presented themselves at interview, or whether that be the way they respond to questions or to scenarios where we may present a difficult scenario to look at coping skills, or whether that be a challenging scenario. How they come across is quite important, and I think you need to probably think about that before you come along to interview. I think in terms of organisational awareness, particularly on interview, personally for myself, I always find it quite a key strength when somebody has taken the time out to understand not just the area of work that they wish to work in, or possibly an element of the profession, but the organisation they're going to work in. So if somebody had come along at interview and had researched the piece of work, researched the population or maybe the client group that they're going to manage, the impression for me is that they've taken the time out to, I suppose, delve further into things other than a job description and a person spec. If a candidate submits an application when we've gone out to advert, normally what we will do is monitor the application against essential and preferred criteria. If a candidate has tailored the application to include the organisational intelligence and awareness, that would lend me to start to believe that that would be somebody I would shortlist for interview alongside the essential criteria. If people don't tailor the application or they don't meet the essential criteria, it would, because of the vast majority of the vast number of applications we receive, it may lend me not to shortlist them. In terms of project management skills, I think when you're in your nurse training, you use them without understanding you use them, because you need to get assignments in on time. You need to plan your assignments and the way that they're moving through, and it becomes the norm and you don't think of it. That will be the same in your nursing day. It could be on a ward where you've got staff who have not turned in or they're off sick, and you're trying to now manage a full ward of patients with less staff, but you're trying to tailor the skills and competencies you've got to get you through the day. It can also work if you're planning a new service, or if you're working with commissioners to develop a new service. It can work when you're implementing new guidance or a new policy, or maybe some nice appraisal guidance that's come out. And it will become part of your norm. I suppose that when you're early on in your career, you see project management as a separate skill, and probably what you need to see it as an advantage within your current skills. The World of Work certificate at John Moores University, I think, is going to be incredibly useful going forward for student nurses. I think because it's staged in year 1, year 2 and year 3 of the course, it allows students to develop and start to look at the type of skills and expertise they're going to need going forward. And it also prepares them for the workplace. It prepares them for an understanding of what the employer wants from them. It I suppose, prepares them for what it is they need to start to offer. I think having a job interview at the end is crucial. Nerves often take the better of people at interview, and although employers will allow for nerves on the day, and that is a natural thing to happen, having the confidence to understand what's required of you in that job, and being able to almost practice the type of questions that may be asked, or the type of things that will be required on an application form, I think will be incredibly useful. I think in terms of the quality of nursing going forward, values and behaviours are going to be key. Jane Cummins, who's the chief nurse for England, who's recently been appointed at the National Commissioning Board, has 5 key areas that she's going to look at in the strategy for nursing going forward over the next 5 years, and they're care, compassion, commitment, communication and courage. Those 5 C's, as they're being known, will be managed and monitored through the patient experience survey, whether that's through national patient experience surveys or whether that's through providers or care trusts, examining how patients feel about the service delivery. I think she will start to drive up those commitments to nursing. And what employers will start to do is look for that type of candidate on interview, look at the commitment to nursing, look at their care and compassion. And I think if they can demonstrate and exhibit them values and behaviours, it will, I think, not enable the profile of nursing to raise, but it will also raise the competency in the workforce. I'd ask them to be proud of being a nurse. I think I'd ask them to be respectful of themselves and of the nurses that are around them, but more importantly about the patients, to really be committed to high quality, safe and effective care, and to ensure at all costs that the patients have a great experience. So I suppose finally my top tips are, I would certainly do the World at Work certificate. I think it's an excellent opportunity for nurses going forward in terms of learning about your own self-awareness, about organisational developments, about looking at values and skills and behaviours. Employers will take those skills on board, but certainly it's an asset, I think. It's an asset for you and it's an asset for the employer that you've already started to be aware of some of that. Make the most of your placements. I think they're an ideal opportunity for getting to know the different areas of working, different levels of skills required, but they're also a chance to network and a chance for you to start to show your worth in the organisation. And that's the things that the staff around you will remember. And at interview, they're things that people will remember from when you were on the ward. Networking is really useful. I know Liverpool John Moores University put on a series of lectures, networking events. There's different things you can go to. Get involved. You need to jump in so that you can really see the expanse of nursing. I think you need to be aware about the changes in the NHS. They'll be key in determining your pathway going forward. And I suppose I'd finally say just be proud.